Well, the wheat market is making what I would call a valiant effort this morning to move to the upside, but early gains are already starting to slip in corn and beans. We will keep an eye on that throughout the show. This morning, we're talking land, and then it's our Farmer Forum. Live from a Molasses Cookie Wednesday via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning, we'll begin with a conversation with Doug Hensley, the president of Hertz Real Estate Services. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Quint Pottinger and Scott Berger. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. Your outstanding guest host for the morning, handsome newsman Davis Michelson behind the big green leafy microphone of AgriTalk. Thanks so much for tuning in on this Wednesday morning, everybody. I am your pal, Davis Michelson, and, the siren song of the open road. It's lured Chip away from us again. The scent of hot concrete, diesel fumes, just too enticing to ignore, and so, like so many before him, seduced by the siren song of travel, our beloved host is on the road. He'll be back tomorrow, don't worry. And actually, we've got Ted Seifried, the pride of Water Street, on this afternoon. It's going to be a very exciting day. We've got the Farmer Forum this morning. We need to check in with land. Doug Hensley has been a phenomenal resource for us here on AgriTalk. And at landowner for me as well, personally, professionally, I don't know. We like Doug Hensley, smart dude. We're going to talk to him about what he's seeing now in the land market and what he expects heading down the road. He has been focused on the amount of cash held by farmers and potential land buyers, I guess more specifically. He's been keeping an eye on the equity that's out there in the land right now and what is being done with that equity. I can't wait to get an update from him. It's been far too long since we've spoken with him. And then we've got some of my favorites, Quint Pottinger and Scotty Possible. Scott Berger will join us for the Farmer Forum, that in the last half of the show. So if we're looking at these markets, it looked like corn and beans kind of wanted to follow wheat to the upside this morning earlier. But currently I've got the Dees corn at 410.5. It's only up 1 3/4. The Sept is only up 3/4 now at 396.5. Looking over at the soybeans, August up 5 1/4. Novi down 3/4, and from the Nov on, we're just fractionally lower now. All of a sudden, we flipped to the negative side, but the wheats are still up double digits. Interesting there. Livestock's mixed. Fat cattle sort of higher in the nearbys, and then feeder cattle lower across the board. Lean hogs. I've got some news on lean hogs that has the market moving higher this morning. That's some good news for all of us. Margie Eckelkamp is coming up next. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the National Weather Service outlook, where extremely dangerous heat will continue across the East Coast and much of the south central United States today. Record high temperatures are expected for some areas, specifically across the mid-Atlantic, where extreme heat risk conditions reside. There is a slight risk, a level 2 of 5, a slight risk of severe thunderstorms today for the northern mid-Atlantic into portions of southern New England. We, earlier this week, talked to the gang over at BAM WX, and they said, yeah, by the end of the week, we might be all right. Should be a pretty good weekend. Some storms had to come through. You know, when you get that hot air meeting incoming cold air, it can get a little bit spicy, and we've seen that. Still some more of that to get through over in New England, and it's going to remain hot here in the south central U.S., at least for today, it looks like. All three major stock indices registered gains on Tuesday in the wake of retail sales figures. Not only did the Dow hit an all-time high and a fresh record close, but it also saw its best session since June 2023. The pork cutout rose $2.58 to $100.87 on Tuesday, fueled by a jump in primal ham prices. That's the first time the cutout topped $100 since June 14. The result here, let's look out at the Dees hogs, up $1.05 currently at 10:10 Central Time, 65.17.5. Go all the way out to the April, we're at 74. There's a bit of a dip there in the middle, a bit of a chasm, you might say, in the Feb and the Deese hog contracts, but green across the board on the hogs so far this morning. House Ag Committee Chair Glenn G.T. Thompson and Senate Ag Committee Ranking Member John Bozeman are actively advocating for a new farm bill. However, they anticipate the necessity of another extension of the 2018 Farm Bill to allow more time for the completion of a new package. Bozeman expressed at the Republican National Convention that an extension would be beneficial for farmers. The American Farm Bureau Federation says that while recent guidelines on how U.S.-grown grains and oilseeds can qualify as a potential sustainable aviation fuel feedstocks is a step in the right direction, the timing and stringent requirements pose challenges for farmers. Many relevant decisions were made before the rules were announced, and the paperwork requirements are extensive. President Donald Trump's pick for his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, defends Trump's plans for sweeping tariffs and a deportation of undocumented immigrants. A leading farm state senator disagrees with at least one of those. Vance has defended Trump's plans for tariffs as high as 10%, renewing concerns and memories in farm country of losses from Trump's China tariffs. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley disagrees with Trump and Vance, but cautions this.
There's a movement in both political parties for this sort of protectionism. I think for agriculture it's bad, but it's just an honest disagreement that we have over policy.
Protectionism, that might be a word that I lay before our Farmer Forum panel today, protectionism, and just see what comes of that. In the meantime, we've got Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. Good morning, Margie. How are you?
Hey, Davis. Good morning.
Great to talk with you. What do you want to talk about?
Yes. So I want to bring forth the August 1st deadline for our Scoop Business Innovation Award. So this is a way to put a spotlight on ag retailers who have really demonstrated a digital transformation in their business. This also really highlights a trend that we've seen over the last 6 to 8 years as retailers have tried to do more and reach out in new and different ways to help with their customers' businesses. Now, it's the third year we've done the Business Innovation Award. Every year it's been sponsored by our friends at EverAg, so appreciative of their support. But what I want to highlight, if there's any ag retailers out there who are really proud of how their team has come together to do business differently and better, that this is the award for them. It is the common theme that I have seen in our previous winners, and I know there is a lot of good work being done out there by ag retailers. So if folks want to apply, again, the deadline is August 1st. Just go to thedailyscoop.com, click on awards, and you'll see the application for the Business Innovation Award. The prizes include a trip to go to the ARA Conference and Expo, which will be December 3rd to the 5th in Houston, Texas. So I would encourage everyone to apply.
I can only assume that I am not eligible, right? I keep applying and I hear nothing. Probably not
Davis,
eligible.
You're a man of many talents, but being an ag retailer is not one of them.
You are right. That is absolutely fair. Thank you, Margie Eckelkamp. August 1st is the sign-up deadline, thedailyscoop.com. Get more. Margie, thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you, Davis.
All right. We are off and running. Your pal, Davis Michelson. So pleased that you are here with us. Stick around. I'm going to talk with Doug Hensley next about the land market. On your favorite radio station or your preferred digital device, AgriTalk is live every weekday. Indeed, we are live right now, good people. Well, unless you're listening later, in which case it only sounds like Memorex. Am I right? Am I right? Davis Michelson here in for Chip Flory. He's traveling today, so I'm hosting this morning's show. Looking forward to it. This afternoon, Ted Seifried from Zanerag Hedge is bringing a guest with him. So we'll turn over the keys of the show to Ted Seifried this afternoon. And then tomorrow morning, we've got Chip Flory live from Parts Unknown. And then after that, everything is going to be pretty much normal for the rest of the week. So with that, let me bring in Doug Hensley, president of Hertz Real Estate Services. Doug, it's been too long since we spoke. It feels like a good time catch up with you a little bit. How you doing today?
Davis, I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on. And Chip's pretty brave to leave you in control today, isn't he?
It's a dicey prospect, Doug. A dicey prospect. But
yes, it is.
But
yeah.
with smart guys like you along for the ride, I can't miss. I absolutely can't miss. My job is easy here.
Sounds
so
good.
I don't really have anything specific necessarily to ask you, Doug. Just that conditions have shifted dramatically on the farm balance sheets. 22, 23 treated us a certain way. 24 isn't being quite so kind so far. I don't know what swirling issue is the most important to the land market, to the farm balance sheet. So I'm just going to open the Hensley Pandora box and see what falls out of that exceptional
Sure,
mind
absolutely.
of yours. What are you focusing on?
Yeah, so I would kind of describe what's happened. I think 21 and 22 were kind of twin sisters to each other. 23 gave us a little bit of a preview, I think, for what was to come in 2024. And, last year we saw the interest rate environment shift. The grain market started to shift a year ago. They, once we turned the calendar to 2024, that's when things really got not so fun. And if you look at a chart on corn or soybeans, either one, for those of us in the Midwest, 2024 has been pretty ugly. And so we're putting low grain prices for a lot of people where we're at is well below break-even levels. That's not to say that we sold all of our crop from 23 at the levels that we're at. And I think that's something that's pretty important to keep in mind. And we're not necessarily going to sell all of our 24 production at levels where we're at. Maybe it'll be more, maybe it'll be less, but I think there's a lot of marketing strategies out there that have people positioned who are paying attention. What I will say is, the land market started to downshift, and I feel like we kind of started to plateau in the second half of 2023. And I largely think that has continued here into the first half of 2024. And everybody says, dang, Doug, this land market should be softening more than what it seems like it is, because we're still going and, we're seeing $14,000 and $16,000 sales. And in June, I know there were a couple of $20,000 sales that still happened. But the reality in the market, as far as I'm seeing, is we're seeing a shift lower in the volume of sales that's happening compared to 2 years ago. So what that means is there's still enough demand in the marketplace to absorb the reduced supply of farms that's available. So I think that's helping prices, kind of defy some people's logic as to this land market should be falling because profitability this year is going to be poor and interest rates are high. But I think what's happening right now is that farmers and others who are interested in the land market, but predominantly farmers, they're saying, hey, I can hit the pause button on capital expenditures like, upgrading farm equipment or, harvest equipment for this fall. I think I'm going to hit the pause button on that. But when you have a farm that is adjoining you or something that you're interested in come to the market, that only happens once every so often. And so even if you're reluctant to bid or to, take a stab at a farm, I feel like that's what's happening because people are still positioned financially to be able to do so. I think they're just protecting their working capital in a little different way than they were a year ago, and rightfully so. But the reality is you buy the farm when it's convenient, or not convenient. You buy it when it's available, not
when it's for sale.
And that's a little bit of what's happening. And everybody's talking about how much grain is out in the countryside.
I was going to ask you about that.
In bins and on farm storage. It's a real common conversation that's happening right now. And you know what that tells me? That tells me that the countryside is pretty financially secure right now because they haven't been forced to clean out bins to pay bills. And so I think there's some clues that we can look at just in the, in the reality of what we're seeing in the data. And I think farmers came into this downturn, or, if that's what we're entering, we don't know how short or long it's going to be, but if they came into this downturn, I think we came into it about as financially healthy as we have maybe ever been. And so I think that's what we're seeing play out in the land market. And there's some strata as you think of, the land market. The really good top end farms are still maintaining their value, probably first and primarily. And as you get into that second and third tier of quality, those are the ones that I think we're starting to see a little bit of weakness. And it depends on where you're at, Davis. And that stands to reason. A lesser quality farm, people are less willing to stick their neck out for. Sure. And, if you have a really high quality farm, people are still gonna, they're gonna toe up to the line and say, hey, this is something that I think we, from a long-term perspective, we're gonna do. We're not gonna let the short term and what we have in the markets right now completely dictate what decisions we make for the long term. And, it will influence people's thinking at any one time, but I don't think it's totally changing decisions yet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It absolutely did. Well, and it makes me wonder, I'm going to pick on Iowa. I think in previous conversations, we've talked about something like 80% of Iowa farmland being owned outright, not under a loan. Yeah. Is that a correct figure? It's
a little higher than that. Back in 2017, the number was 82% of Iowa farmland was owned without a mortgage. And every 5 years, the Iowa legislature mandates that there's a study that Iowa State does on land ownership across the state of Iowa. And the 22 study, which came out about a year ago now, the results from that, it showed that 84% of Iowa farmland is now owned without a mortgage. And so, people have banked a lot of profits for several years. 2024 doesn't look like a big profit year, and in some cases it'll be a backwards year. But
again, and that's my question.
We came in here in a healthy condition.
How long before we begin to see that backwardization manifest in some real painful ways? I don't feel like we've seen it yet, have we?
No, I really don't think we have. And if you look back at the charts, Davis, look back the last time that we saw in this cycle, we went through a high cycle, 2012, 2013, and 2014 was kind of the end of that cycle. And from 2015 through 2020, we were living in break-even agriculture. Everybody remembers it. We went through the tariff situation and just the trade war with China and that sort of thing. And profitability was not super great during that period. And in a lot of cases, we outbusheled it. We made a little money, but not, it was nothing like what we've just come through in 21, 22, and 23. And, during that time, if you look at the land value charts, you're seeing a situation where land values had a little bit of I'll call it a leak to them. It was not a dramatic drop in value, but we came out of that previous up cycle in healthy financial condition. We weathered the storm, and land values did fall back just a little bit, but it was more of a leak than what we observed in the corn and soybean markets. And I think these long-term capital assets like land, that's kind of that's a holy grail for people in agriculture. Is they're going to protect their land. And the fact of the matter is that people are really financially healthy who are stepping up to buy farms to begin with. The banks and any of the lenders that are out there require very responsible decision making for somebody to even qualify for a loan if they were to borrow money. And so I just don't. And with crop insurance and some of these tools that are out there, is there risk? Yes. Is it as great as it was 40 years ago? I just don't think it's even close to that, David.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have, Doug. We're going to have to talk again real soon. This perspective that you laid out here for us, fantastic. Really appreciate you, Doug. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for having me on, David.
That is Doug Hensley, the president of Hertz Real Estate Services. I'm Davis Michelson. We'll be right back with the Farmer Forum.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Brian, I've got a problem here. I got my quote screen up. I keep hitting refresh, and the numbers keep changing. Corn doesn't seem to know what it wants to do at all. What's the story?
Well, wheat is the story this morning with double-digit gains there. So that's being fueled or helped to be fueled by the sharp losses in the U.S. dollar index this morning, and so some active corrective buying going on in the wheat complex. That is spilling over and helping corn to some degree. Corn's about a penny or two higher at the moment, but the soybean market and the soy complex in general just is struggling to find sustained buyer interest. Kind of a mixed tone in soybeans with some spreading activity there. August higher and the November contract a little bit weaker. Same type of situation in the meal market, and soy oil's a little bit weaker. So we've got kind of things pulling in different directions today, but wheat with those double-digit gains is definitely the story so far.
What was that $100 print that I saw in the hog market today?
The pork cutout.
There it is.
Topped $100.
Nice. So
on yesterday's afternoon trade. So we'll see if we can sustain it above that or not. That's the first time in about a month that we've been above that level. But we've got the hog futures trading to the upside and pretty solidly to the upside, though they backed well off earlier highs here at mid-morning. Kind of mixed tone in live cattle futures. The front end of that market's just a little bit firmer, continues to be supported by the big discounts to the cash market. And then feeder cattle, they're trading sharply to the downside now at mid-morning and starting to extend those losses somewhat.
And if I'm looking over at the WTI crude oil, front month August, up $1.75, 82.51. That's Brian Grady from Pro Farmer on Markets Now. Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. When news breaks, the news makers talk about it on AgriTalk with Chip Flory. Welcome back to AgriTalk. It's Davis Michelson here. Glad you're here as well. Good morning, everybody. Hope today is turning out well for you. It's Wednesday already, if that helps anyone. And here we are. We've got the Farmer Forum lined up here. A great conversation just took place with Doug Hensley from Hertz. There were some nuggets in there. I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to that again. And just as a reminder, you can do that too. Go to agritalk.com or agweb.com. You'll find us there. It's pretty cool. And with that, let's bring in our Farmer Forum. You know what? Let's start with Quint Pottinger. Quint, you and I have not talked in quite some time. Welcome to AgriTalk. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Do me a favor, remind our listeners, give us a quick elevator speech about the Pottinger operation. Where are you at? What you up to?
Yeah, so Affinity Farms, located south of Louisville, about 50 miles, right in the heart of bourbon country.
All right.
10 miles from Maker's Mark, Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, and we grow corn, wheat, and rye for the bourbon distillers.
All right. How are the crops looking?
Well, they were looking pretty pitiful, but we got 5 inches of rain last night in about 30 minutes. So I don't think it's going to take it all up, but they certainly look a little bit better, and the heat has left. We've been under some heat dome for about 45 days, but we've got a 10-day reprieve where we're in the low 80s, which would be very nice.
Man, a 45-day heat dome. That sounds like some Cool Hand Luke stuff there, man, you're enduring.
Yeah, you just get used to it. I feel like I had to put a jacket on this morning when I went outside. So.
Yeah, it's only 85. I need a jacket, right?
Yeah, need a jacket. Yeah, no humidity in 85. Oh.
Yeah, feels like heaven. Outstanding. We'll stand by, Quint. We'll be right back. I want to bring in Scott Berger. Scott, welcome to AgriTalk. It's great to talk to you again. Last time you were on, you were in the tractor. You were feeling the burn. You were trying to get those last acres planted, and I don't know if you even remember being on the show last time. You did a fantastic job, but I'm wondering if you're maybe perhaps a little more rested, a little more lucid today. How are you feeling today, Scott Berger?
Good Good morning, guys. I am feeling much better. It's sunny and 74, a full night's rest last night, and doing some crop scouting this morning.
Attaboy. 74, you probably better bring a hooded sweatshirt, yeah?
I've got long sleeves and pants on today, that's for sure.
Long sleeves will do. Well, give us your elevator speech. Where are you at? What's the burger operation look like real quick?
We are a small family operation in east central Iowa, just row crops, and we do some trucking on the side, and I say yes too much, so I am always busy.
All right. Well, you're a giver. You know, you give and give and give till it hurts. That's what they say about Scotty Possible. Everybody knows that. Everybody says so.
All right.
Fellas, I want to talk to you. You know what? I'm just going to dive right into this. This is a news story that we didn't get to, and I just wanted to bounce it off of you guys here. Deere & Company has issued a statement on X, formerly Twitter, whatever, that they're changing their policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The move aligns with similar actions taken by other companies in the industry. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tractor Supply kerfuffle, which recently abandoned its DEI objectives and discontinued support for non-business related activities. Basically what they're saying here is we want to focus, instead of on these social issues, we want to focus on professional development. Quint, I wonder what your thoughts are on the whole diversity, equity, inclusion, because now it seems like there's sort of a move away. It just doesn't make fiscal sense for some companies. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I saw that last night, and I kind of chuckled because whenever it all started, I thought to myself, this is a big pendulum swing. And in our operation, what we do here, we believe we have to keep the three pillars of sustainability in balance, whether it's economic or environmental or social. And I think companies for a long time were very focused on that economic side, and the environmental came in. And all of a sudden, after COVID, we saw this massive surge in social. And I think they got out of whack. I don't think Deere is alone. I think at the end of the day, they realized that they just went a little too far. And while it is important to support the community, exterior to you have to focus on your internal base, your customer base, and your employee base. And it seems like when that came out, that's exactly what it read. Hey, we've gone out of the orbit just a bit, and we need to pull it back in. I was happy to see that because from a fiscal standpoint, I mean, ag doesn't look like we're going through a boom anytime soon. So I think a lot of people will be tightening up what they do with those funds.
Yep. Scott, I've heard it said that these are first world problems when people are concerned with what gender they might be, or with celebrating, all of this stuff, and all of that's fine. But somewhere in there, it seems like the focus moved away from just running the company properly for a lot of different companies. Do you have any thoughts on this matter?
So I got the pleasure of having a conversation with a Deere employee Sunday about this topic, and he shed some wisdom upon me that, here's a company, you can look at the way that they're running their financials and their economics to make money for the guys at the top and for the shareholders. The boots on the ground, the blue-collar guys don't necessarily agree with that. That's the way the company is running. And the amount of diversity that company has inside of its workforce is bigger than I could ever imagine. And I guess at first I was very against it, not understanding exactly the reasons behind what they were doing. But to break it down into the way I took it was, in marketing, we have a choice to do every single day. And the choice to do nothing is still a choice. And the employees that I talk to on a weekly basis from Deere, if they want to be included in all of that, they can be included in all that. But they're not forcing them to be included in it. So the fact that Deere realized that they might have gone a little too far, and now rather than alienating the minority, they're alienating the majority, I agree with Quinn. I'm glad to see that they're bringing it back in and saying, okay, we went too far. We need to have a bit of balance on this because this isn't going to be something that's going to disappear. The generation that's coming up is full struggle in front of them, and they're going to have to deal with it. And maybe they're going to have to be the parent that says, okay, you can only go that far with this, but then after that, it's no longer accepted.
Yeah. Wow, that's really good. Quint, you talked about the pendulum, and oftentimes, we see the market. Sometimes when the market corrects, it goes too far in the other direction, and then it has to correct from the correction. This is true in the world of human interaction as well, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're constantly, from birth or even in society or civilization, we're sending information out into our environment, getting a response, and then building our next move off that response. And every decision you make is part of that. And seeing this pendulum go out, it's no different than any other pendulum, whether it's social or economic or environmental swing we've had. And I think that the environmental swing is going to be coming back this way too. I really do. I think that we've gotten better at the science on that. So it's no surprise to me. It's just some companies can catch themselves before the pendulum falls off the string, and some can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Yep. It sounds like, Scott, when you're talking about balance, from what you're saying and what I'm reading here from Deere, it sounds like they're at least trying to achieve some form of balance. But let's move over to that political pendulum now. Former President Trump has been shot in the head at a campaign event. Yeah, okay, it nicked his ear, but this could have been a whole different conversation if he hadn't have turned his head just a little bit. Scott, do you have any reflections on that moment? I've never seen anything like that. How about you?
So no, I have no memories of Reagan, and it's amazing to see and hear all the references to that. I caught the show where, my apologies, the politician was on talking about being there and how he feels like it could have been a same type of reflection from 9/11. Personally, out here in Iowa, from the few conversations I've had since this has happened, I don't feel like it's a 9/11 type. And maybe that's because I'm surrounded with the Republican Party more than the other.
Sure.
Is this going to change things political wise? Absolutely. Like Quentin said, every time some event happens, you're going to build a different bridge to a different place and have different feelings. Some people are saying that this is going to create a unity in the Republican Party, and we're going to have all of these victories. November will tell the story.
Yeah. Real quick, Quint, maybe if you have some final thoughts on that matter. We're coming up on a break here quick, but I'll let you talk us out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Scott. I think it was huge. I don't think that there was a good path forward for Trump. I think the debate was probably the best bump he had. But I think the entire country's changed moods. I think the independent voters have gotten attention, and I think that this is going to be huge for the election.
Yeah. That's Quint Pottinger from out in Kentucky. I've also got Scott Berger, Scotty Possible, from Central Iowa here on this morning's Farmer Forum. I want to talk a little bit about what's the word on the street out in farm country. Are people starting to feel the backwardization financially that Doug Hensley was talking about may arrive somewhere? Is there still cash out on the farm? We'll find out. I don't know what you're thinking. So call us at 855-4-TALK-AG and tell us what's on your mind. Welcome back to AgriTalk. There may not be time for phone calls, but give us a call anyway. It might be fun. Give you something to do. Your pal Davis Michelson here. I'm very pleased that you are listening in to this morning's Farmer Forum. We've got Quint Pottinger and we've got Scott Berger. The question before us now, the on-farm stocks has gotten an awful lot of attention, but an equal amount of attention, I think, has been paid to cash on hand among farmers. Quint, I might lean into you a little bit. Can you talk to me about the correlation between cash on hand and on-farm stocks? Is there anything there at all? Am I just grasping at straws?
I don't know. I've only been farming for 12 years. I started from essentially zero when I came back from college.
Yeah.
I never have cash. Even in the boom times, they say build a war chest, build a war chest. Build a war chest. But here, I will say this. I do believe there is something to this on-farm storage. And I think if this demographic story actually plays out to be true with Chinese demand, it doesn't matter who they buy their beans from. The reality is there may be 100, 150 million less mouths to feed in that country. And if our market's export based, then American farmers have got to start figuring out how to replace that demand. And if holding on to that grain in the interim is the way to do that now, that might be the story. And that may be why we didn't see a big run bull market this summer. Maybe there's just too much. I don't know. We've got certified scales on our farm, so I know exactly what's in the bin. I don't know how many other farmers are able to say, well, this is what's in my bin, this is what is it, because I haven't gone across the scale. But I think it's real. I think there's a lot of storage, and I think there's a bigger supply demand story at play, and I'm not sure how long it's going to run.
Yeah. Scott, are there farmers walking around in barrels with suspenders on them there in central Iowa?
I had a quick conversation with my merchandiser this morning, and he said there are farmers that have a large amount of grain out there. And if it's going to take those guys to hold it off the market, to help the market, and us younger ones that can do some savvy marketing and not have to sit on it, and it works, then I guess it works. But yeah, it was very shocking to hear my merchandiser tell me the amount of bushels that he knows are still on farm storage.
Yeah. And that does make me a little bit nervous. But Quint, when we talk about export demand, we need to fire up some new trade agreements or something. But the problem is now there's the accusation of, well, maybe we're just being too protectionist. I don't know. I would kind of tend to lean into protectionism just a little bit. And yet you highlighted so well, we have got to have that export activity. I don't know what the balance is between those two.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm a capitalist. I'm a globalist. And I think a lot of my peers may be more protectionist. But if you're in any production ag in the U.S., you have to have a little globalism. You have to understand that market. Maybe Mexico will be it, but they have healthy demographics. But again, this is not going to be solved in the next 2 or 3 years. I was down in Brazil in March, and of course they tell you the narrative, but all farmers across the world are the same. You sit down at the end of the day and you have dinner with them around their dinner table. They're going to talk about what's really concerning them. And China said they were going to go to Brazil and buy all these beans instead of the U.S. He said they're not buying more beans from us, which may mean that they're just not buying more beans. So, I mean, that's why we started working with these distillers. We're trying to localize that market, and maybe that's what we have to do to find a little bit extra revenue. And on-farm storage is going to be a big piece of that. We hold grain, we like to say, for 13 months out of the year. We have to get through the start of the next harvest to keep these guys running. It's just a different change, a different mindset. Marketing is different now.
Yeah. Scott, I know that you're a marketing nerd. You have an impressive whiteboard in your office there. Marketing has changed, hasn't it? What are you doing anything differently marketing wise there? How are your on-farm stocks?
It absolutely has changed. And, Quint brings up a really good point there. If we're going to domesticate our market and use, we need to build that relationship with our end users close by. I mean, I've over the last 4 or 5 years, unfortunately, have gone through different marketers, but building that relationship with your end user is huge. Knowing that if they come to you in a pinch, they're going to give you a little bit better price. And the only way they're going to do that is if they know what's in your possession, how many bushels are in your grain bin. No, personally, I don't have any old crop beans left, and you've got the bottom of a bin to clean out for old crop. And this morning I got a push bid to Cedar Rapids for, I think it was cash $435. Mm-hmm. So there are opportunities out there if you are willing to be savvy and take it and build a relationship. And these end producers are not our enemy. They are our customer, and we need to build a relationship with them so that we can build our marketing with them. If they want you to try something different, maybe try whatever their new product is. If you can add 50 cents here, 20 cents here, that's what's going to keep a lot of us alive for the next few years in this downturn.
Yeah. Feels like we're entering just the early stages of gotta do what you gotta do to get by time. Quint, does that scare you at all?
Oh, I've been in gotta do what you gotta do to get by since I started.
Attaboy.
This I think will be the first this will be the first downturn I've had where I've looked at the landscape and said, okay, I don't need more acres, I don't need more equipment, I don't need more bins. So from a cash standpoint, we can shift it into market development. Customer service is going to be the key. Like what Scott said, you've got to develop that relationship with the end user.
Wow. Great conversations with two young up-and-coming agriculturalists. Quint Pottinger from Kentucky. Mr. Pottinger, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us and for sharing your time. We appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, happy to be on. Thanks.
You bet. Quint Pottinger. And, of course, Scott Berger. Dude, I'm sorry I won't be here when you're in KC, but we'll have to get together another time. Scott Berger from Central Iowa. We appreciate you, buddy. Be well.
Thank you, sir. We'll catch up again.
Can't wait. All right, well, thank you, beloved listener, for tuning in to AgriTalk. Ted Seifert will be on later on this afternoon for the afternoon show, so we'll keep you